Trains roll by here 15 times a day, carrying the cattle to markets far away. And the barbed wire on the ranch land makes sure the herd won't stray. It's hard for a man to compete. No need for an old hand to rope and ride the range. Steam locomotive stampede across the plains. And it seems to me in Texas the Wild West has been tamed. Guys like me are obsolete, and the stars at night ain't so big and bright, with the smoke and the soot from the town. And the sage in bloom, it smells just like perfume, reminding me that you ain't around. Deep in the broken heart of Texas, the Texas longhorn cow was the toughest stock alive, hardy enough to handle the perils of the drive. 1,000 miles of hardships and still these lean beasts thrive. The market is gone to tallow. No need for a tough cow to endure the brutal trail. Just chop 'em up and ship 'em to towns along the rail. Now the butchers out on the main streets have fatter beef to sell. The trails all lay fallow, and the stars at night ain't so big and bright, with the smoke and the soot from the town. Do the coyotes wail all along the trail, with no one there to hear the sound? I'm deep in the broken heart of Texas. Maybe I'll go to Mexico or the Rocky Mountain Peak. Life's too short to let it go or give up in defeat. Keep wishing things would go back to the way they used to be. You're bound to die in the past, and the stars at night ain't so big and bright, with the smoke and the soot from the town. Like the prairie sky, I stay wide and high to all the chances abound. Deep in the broken heart of Texas.
Good afternoon or good morning or whatever time of day you are watching this. Welcome to San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship's continuing YouTube series. This morning's title is Going Forward Backwards. Everyone is welcome and we're glad that you are here, sort of you. I have one announcement which will not surprise most folks, and that announcement is please read your newsletter. There will be important things in there about going forward, whether we're going forward backwards or not. And there'll be some information about money. So we hope you will read your newsletter. May our flame here lit be to us a symbol of the torch that is passed from hand to hand and life to life, of caring and concern and the passion for involvement which have marked the men and women of our liberal faith for many generations. Those are the words of Philip R. Giles. I invite you now to sing the opening hymn, Come and Go With Me. Today's opening words are titled, Nothing is Static, and they were written by Unitarian Universalist minister Manish K. Mishra Marzetti. I love saying his name. I used these opening words in the first service that we held online 6 weeks ago, I believe, after we became aware of the pandemic crisis and made the decision to hold services online for as long as necessary. The words remain relevant and sadly enduring. Nothing is static. The ground shifts, sometimes slowly, sometimes like an earthquake, reminding us that the solidity we often love and seek is an illusion. The crumbling dust of the desert plains, the moist fertility of farmlands, the eroding coastline of tidal shores, all are changing. Committees dissolve or are created. Leaders retire or step away. Ministers come and go. Bylaws are amended. New experiences lead to new truths which foster evolution. The natural course of life always pushing us toward greater understandings of what it means to be human. Everything about our existence points toward change, flexibility, and dynamic recreation. And it's hard because change involves loss. Can we hold the losses well while not holding ourselves back? The ground shifts, sometimes slowly, sometimes like an earthquake. Nothing is static. This morning today we are going to do what we did last week, and that is have the affirmation sung. And now you're ready to sing along, I think. So here we are doing the affirmation. And we'll probably alternate speaking and singing our affirmation now that we have that choice. Well, here is our newly credentialed Director of Religious Education, Karina Whitaker Lewis. Congratulations to you, Karina. And what might you have in the Wonder Box today? I know what story you are sharing with us today, and I am sure everyone will be as delighted by it as I am.
Good morning, San Gabriel, and good morning especially to any kids, older kids who are watching this morning. I miss you all so much, and I hope you're doing well at home. I know it's hard. And I'm hoping that today we can get out of our homes a little bit by using our imagination. And I bet the Wonder Box can help us with that. So let's use our wondering minds and ask some questions and think about what might be in here. It's super noisy, just like last week. Do you remember what people guessed last week? That might be a clue. Yep. I've got a smooth stone. We had shovels last week, but they were so noisy, many people said rocks. So I'm glad we could have a stone today. A stone, what could that be about? Well, Reverend Sandy is preaching about continuity today. Continuity means that things continue in a way that is predictable. They keep happening in a way that you expect. And the story I'm sharing today is called A Stone Stood Still by Brendan Wenzel. And I think you might see some continuity there. A stone sat still with the water, grass, and dirt, and it was as it was where it was in the world. And the stone was dark, and the stone was bright, and the stone was loud, and the stone was quiet. And it sat where it sat in the water, grass, and dirt, and it was as it was where it was in the world. And the stone was rough, and the stone was smooth, and the stone was green, red, purple, and blue. And the stone was a pebble, and the stone was a hill, and the stone was a feel, and the stone was a smell. And it sat where it sat, with the water, grass, and dirt, and it was as it was where it was in the world. And the stone was the wild, and the stone was a home, and the stone was a kitchen, and the stone was a throne, and the stone was a marker, and a map, and a maze, a story, a stage. And the stone was an island, and the stone was a wave, and the stone was a memory, and the stone was always. Have you ever known such a place where with water, grass, and dirt, a stone sits still in the world? The end. So, did the book help you imagine yourself far away from home, maybe on a rocky shoreline with a large stone? I hope so. The stone was there for all those animals. It was all these different things depending on the animal. For a snail, it was smooth, and for the snail, it was rough. And for the porcupine, it felt smooth. And it was bright or dark or big or small. It was all these things. And yet it was always there. And it made me think of Earth Day too, which we just celebrated 50 years of Earth Day this past week, and how that made me just think about how we rely on the earth to always be there. It's our only home. And yet we need to take care of our home, don't we? We probably know that even better these days. So reliability, continuity, dependability, these are all the foundations of trust that build up our community and our faith. And I have a feeling that's what Reverend Sandy is going to be talking about with us today. And we'll do some more of that exploring when we get together at 2 p.m. So I will see you then. Bye.
Thank you, Karina. I invite you now into a moment of silence. This is what you're more used to than the spoken meditation that I have been doing. So the regular moment of silence, followed by the breathing meditation. The reading that I'd like to share with you today was written by Unitarian Universalist minister Kathleen McTeague, and she titled this "No Ordinary Life." She writes, "I have an article from an old Irish newspaper, the Belfast Newsletter. Written in 1849, the story tells about the loss of a ship full of immigrants just as it approached the coast of Canada at the end of its long voyage from Ireland. In the breathless, dramatic prose of this era, the reporter writes, late at night, the ship ran into an iceberg with terrific force. The whole of her boxes were stove in. The whole of her bows were stove in, and the next moment the sea was rushing into the hold with the violence of a cataract. About 20 of the passengers managed to reach the deck just before she went down, some of whom jumped onto the ice while others clung to the floating spars. 9 only, however, could be preserved. 6 men, 2 women, and a boy. 109 unhappy souls perished. The account ends with the names of those unlikely 9 who managed to survive, and among them is the little boy, Patrick McTeague, my grandfather's grandfather. A second cousin unearthed the article in Ireland and sent it around to family members. We had always heard the tale that there was a shipwreck in our past, but by the time it had reached even my father's generation, it was told with a dubious tone and no details. Maybe it happened, and maybe it didn't. After all, every family likes to think of itself as special, escaping a gruesome fate by the skin of its collective teeth. The thing is, it's always true. For every person, for every family, if we trace the delicate filament of life back far enough, we will each find the shipwreck, Earthquake, landslide, pogrom, war, or starvation, an ancestor barely escaped. And there will be close calls and near misses as well. The wartime bullet that spared your grandfather's heart by an inch. The chance meeting on an accidental road that led to your parents' marriage. The lucky moment when their love resulted in the particular pregnancy that led to the specific you. Hundreds of threads of connection bring us into life, each one unimaginably tenuous and fragile. Nothing about our lives is ordinary. Held up against the shadows of pathways not taken, countless catastrophes could have snuffed out the spark that led to this beating heart, these wondrous hands. Every life is gift and grace, fragile, astonishing, and irrepeatable. And unrepeatable. We forget this easily, swept up in the pulse and busyness of our days. We down all the stories that have been told and that we have to keep on telling before we grasp what moving forward backwards means. Well, what about going forward backwards in the wider community of planet Earth? Where do we find continuity in that community? Of course, there are actually numerous examples. The most obvious one for us right now being how humans survived that pandemic in 1918, known popularly, yet I believe erroneously, as the Spanish flu. I don't want us to dwell on the obvious, though. I want us to begin to make the connection between our current pandemic and climate change. I want to honor the 50th anniversary of Earth Day by staying constant, by being the continuity carriers, staying constant to the biggest challenge facing planet Earth, and thus all of creation, global warming. I'll expand on this next week. For now, I want only to note a few Earth Day related thoughts and stories. Some of you might remember that over 400,000 people gathered in New York City on September 21st, 2014 for the Climate March to tell world leaders that they have to take action immediately and decisively to shift the path that humanity has mistakenly taken. You may remember that march, but did you know that among those 400,000 people were the 13 indigenous grandmothers? An international alliance of indigenous women elders founded in 2004 and dedicated to using prayer and education to make the human family safe and strong for the next 7 generations. Keepers of continuity, each and every one of those 13 grandmothers, carriers of a different kind of virus. I hope and trust that many of you are familiar with 350.org, founded by Bill McKibben and others, and I hope and trust that you know who Bill McKibben is. If you don't know about either McKibben or 350.org, there is your homework assignment. Find out about them. 350.org is one of many grassroots organizations working together to make major systemic changes in how we live. In other words, here's another example of how we go forward backwards and how we all already know as human creatures what to do at the other end of the pandemic. We've certainly gotten sidetracked and we can't help that, but we know what to do at the other end. Tragically, we humans have become horribly distracted about what really matters in life. As more than one person has said to me since this all began, maybe we have to hit the pause button in human affairs. And maybe that isn't a bad thing entirely. A bit drastic, perhaps, the way this particular pause moment is playing out, but maybe we are supposed to hit the reset button with a new understanding of what it means to be human and what is truly important in life. I was appalled a few days ago when a politician said that some things are worth dying for because they are more important than life. And I thought, no, nothing is more important than life. I have been a war protester all my life because it shouldn't come down to that ridiculous argument, some things are more important than life. We should never, ever have to make people go to war to protect life or a way of life. We should have figured out how to avoid war long before a war was supposedly inevitable. I digress a little. Story about the environment and the earth, and probably none of you remember the names Matt Fuller and Chiara D'Angelo from that same time period of 2014. And if anyone does, well, then you get a gold star and no homework assignment. Fuller and D'Angelo protested Arctic oil drilling by somehow attaching themselves to one of the Arctic oil drilling support ships to draw attention to climate change and to protest the exploratory drilling that Royal Dutch Shell Company was scheduled to begin in the summer of 2014 in the Chukchi, I'm not quite sure how to say that, the Chukchi Sea, which is off the northwestern Alaska coast. Speaking truth to power, staying true to core values, D'Angelo and Fuller's efforts were, at least temporarily, successful because at the end of September in 2014, the Royal Dutch Shell Oil Company gave up its quest to be the first company to produce oil in that region. When we go backwards and see what astounding actions have been committed by such amazing people, well, then we begin to understand how we will go forward, how we will find a better way to live. We begin to understand what continuity means, the kind of continuity that is the result of making covenants based in compassion held together with the glue of commitment. And it is quite possible that we Unitarian Universalists, along with other liberal progressive faith traditions, are uniquely situated to understand how we will do that going forward, how we will find a better way to live, because our faith traditions try to understand what continuity means, but also we have done a lot of work in trying to figure out, where does science belong in all of this? Science is not a religion, but science is equally important, but we can't just accept science. So I'm not going to go any more into that today, but you'll probably get this later. The big question is, and it is not a new question, do we come out of this crisis with a better understanding of and appreciation for the oneness of all people, or do we come out of this crisis with fear, more fear than ever, of the other? The best of humanity or the worst of humanity? The continuity that this faith tradition of Unitarian Universalism offers is the continuity that I wish and pray for, that I hope we have when we build that brave new world. I will end my remarks with this quote from Adlai Stevenson, whom some of you undoubtedly will have heard of, I hope. I have used this quote in the past, not here at San Gabriel, but I have always associated it with welcoming congregations where we celebrate differences, whether those differences be skin color or sexual preferences or gender identity. So not so much with differences of opinions. Differences of belief, yes, but that's not quite the same thing as difference of opinion. And I tell you this because how else will we build a new, different world, ACV, after coronavirus, if not by listening to and considering the validity of the opinions of others concerning how to go about building that better, braver, we hope, world. That is continuity in action. When I recently came across this Stevenson quote and reread it, I discovered new insight and meaning in it. So here it is, Stevenson's quote. I think that one of our most important tasks is to convince others that there's nothing to fear in difference. That difference, in fact, is one of the healthiest and most invigorating of human characteristics without which life would become meaningless. Here lies the power of the liberal way, says Stevenson. Not in making the whole world Unitarian Universalist, but in helping ourselves and others to see some of the possibilities inherent in viewpoints other than one's own. In encouraging the free interchange of ideas, in welcoming fresh approaches to the problems of life, in urging the fullest, most vigorous use of critical self-examination. May it be so. And may we put these words into action with a song like, "Come Sing a Song with Me," in our hearts and minds. That is the closing hymn. Our time is finished, but our work is not done. May our spirits be renewed and our resolve strengthened as we meet the challenges of the week to come. This chalice flame is extinguished until we ignite it again with the spark of our communion. The closing words are titled Keepers of the Dream and were written by H.G. Wenzel. Keepers of the dream, will come again and again from what humble places we do not know to struggle against the crushing odds, leaving behind no worldly kingdom, but only a gleam in the dark hills to show how high we may climb. Already there have been many such heroes, women and men whose names we do not know, but whose words and deeds still light the path for us. Go in peace, go in love and compassion. Amen, and blessed be.
Now I got a brand new dance. I need one more shot. Just need one last chance. No, I won't get caught. Gonna make my last stand. This time I can't be bought. Then again, on the other hand, how much have you got? I got nothing to lose and nothing to gain. It's like a one-way ticket to cruise in the passing lane. I can't complain.